At first, people only stopped speaking, not out of fear, not yet, only because something above them had interrupted the room again. And now, everyone heard it. Then they began listening. Morning returned to Iping through frost-clouded windows and pale winter light, but warmth no longer gathered inside the inn as it once had. People sat farther apart now. Conversations arrived cautiously, as though every word spoken aloud might somehow invite attention. Even the staircase had become difficult to ignore, not because anything could be seen there, but because everyone had begun watching it. Mrs. Hall noticed the change first, not in the stranger, in the others. Guests who once lingered comfortably near the hearth now finished their meals quickly. Travelers lowered their voices without realizing it. Some laughed too loudly, only to fall silent again moments later. And whenever a sound emerged from the room upstairs, every face in the inn reacted before anyone spoke. The closed door above them had become more than a door. It had become a presence. People measured silence around it, imagined movement beyond it, invented explanations for it. And because no explanation ever fully settled the mind, the imagination continued working long after reason stopped. The conversations began quietly, never in the center of the room, always at the edges, near dim candles, near corners, near lowered voices. Some believed the stranger was hiding an illness. Others insisted he must be disfigured. A few claimed they had heard objects moving upstairs when no footsteps followed. And once such stories begin, they rarely remain unchanged. Each retelling carried something new, a detail added, a certainty strengthened, a silence interpreted differently, until rumor itself began shaping the atmosphere of the inn. Soon, the entire room had learned to pause together. A sudden creak overhead, a muffled sound beyond the ceiling. Nothing dramatic, nothing undeniable, and yet every conversation stopped. Not because people understood what they had heard, but because they now expected something to happen. The waiting itself had become part of the fear. Even the hallways felt altered. Doors appeared slightly displaced. Shadows lingered strangely at corners. People began remembering rooms differently after leaving them. A chair not where it had been. A candle burning lower than expected. A door they were certain had been closed. Small things. But fear rarely begins with large events. It begins with uncertainty repeated too many times. Soon, the inn itself seemed to encourage suspicion. Objects no longer felt reliable. People entered rooms carefully now, not because they expected danger, but because they had stopped trusting stillness. An empty chair could hold attention for several moments. A shifted object might remain in the mind for the rest of the evening, and slowly, without anyone fully realizing it, the invisible had begun occupying the imagination of the house. At night, the disturbances felt closer. The corridors listened. Curtains stirred faintly without visible cause. Candles flickered inside perfectly still rooms, and every unexplained movement, however small, now carried meaning, not proof. Meaning. that was enough. The stranger himself only deepened the unease. He moved through the inn like someone unwilling to belong to it. He avoided conversation, avoided familiarity, avoided every attempt at ordinary human closeness, and wherever he appeared, silence followed soon afterward. Not forced silence, something worse, the kind that arrives naturally when people no longer feel comfortable speaking freely. By now, even shared rooms felt divided. People occupied the same space while remaining emotionally separate from one another. Meals became shorter, voices quieter. Eyes drifted constantly toward doors, hallways, ceilings. No one wished to appear frightened, and yet no one wished to remain alone either. The inn had stopped feeling communal. It had become watchful. Mrs. Hall attempted to preserve normality. The lamps were lit each evening, the rooms prepared carefully, the routines maintained exactly as before. But routine itself could no longer calm the house, because once anxiety settles into ordinary life, even familiar gestures begin feeling fragile, and beneath every task, every conversation, every passing silence, the same question waited quietly. What exactly was upstairs? People now crossed corridors with hesitation. They listened before opening doors, paused before staircases, looked behind themselves without reason. The inn no longer frightened them through visible danger. It frightened them through anticipation, through the exhausting pressure of expecting disturbance at any moment. And once fear becomes habitual, it no longer requires evidence. Late at night, the building seemed unable to rest. The staircase disappeared upward into darkness thick enough to feel occupied. Every floorboard carried memory. Every silence felt observed. And though the village still lacked answers, the atmosphere inside the inn had already transformed completely, not through revelation, but through accumulation. 100 small uncertainties slowly gathering together until ordinary life itself began bending beneath them.
Fear rarely spreads through proof. Most often it spreads through people, a glance repeated, a story retold, a silence interpreted the same way by enough voices, and soon entire rooms begin changing without anyone understanding precisely why. By now, the villagers of Iping were no longer reacting only to the stranger upstairs. They were reacting to one another, to hesitation, to expectation, to the growing tension that had settled quietly inside the walls around them. The inn still stood as it always had. The candles still burned, the doors still opened, the winter still gathered beyond the windows, and yet nothing inside the house felt entirely ordinary anymore. Because once uncertainty takes root inside a community, it rarely remains contained to a single room, and somewhere above them, behind the closed door, the silence continued listening,